over the years putting these women's events together, so I know what it takes for all of you guys to put this together, so thank you. And it's kind of nice to just write this and not be doing all this other stuff, but I appreciate all you guys' efforts. Thank you to you ladies who shared tonight. It's a hard thing to stand up and be vulnerable in front of a lot of people you don't know. For a lot of people, I don't have that problem. As a matter of fact, I'm already not saying what's on this page, which I know shocks all of my friends. But thank you to everybody for being here tonight. It's such a joy for me to stand up here and see so many people that I heard from today or this last week or tonight telling me that I appreciate that I was doing this and praying for me, and I really appreciate and felt all of those prayers. I think I wrote this 6 or 7 times. I told myself Sunday was going to be the cutoff date. That did not happen. So I rewrote some stuff today, so I'm going to use my notes because I just couldn't really decide exactly what I wanted to say, and I couldn't figure out a way to put it all in, so you're going to get the Spark Notes version of me. And for those of you who are not in high school now, that's what they call Cliff Notes now. The online version of Cliff Notes is the Spark Notes. So you learn a little something. So before I get started, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, I just thank you so much for each and every one of the ladies who's here tonight, Lord. You know what's on our hearts and what's on our minds. I just pray that you would be with all of our families who aren't here tonight, with the husbands or babysitters, with kids, with all those that aren't here with us. Lord, I just pray that you would keep your hand on them as well. Lord, I pray that these women would hear something tonight from me or from someone at their table or one of the testimonies that were given earlier that would touch them and that would spark their interest to grow closer to you, Lord. We just are so thankful for this opportunity. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to share some of my story, Lord, and I just pray that you would be with me as I speak to these ladies tonight. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
So, like Marcia said, I'm Tori Carty. Some of you know me, and some of you don't yet, but you will. So, if you ask my friends or my family or my coworkers or some of the girls in my 8th grade girls Sunday school class, what kind of woman I am or how to describe me, I think a lot of them would say that I'm a strong woman. But the thing is, I'm only a strong woman because I found strength in the Lord. I'm strong because of how He has shaped my life. I'm strong because of the example that my parents modeled for me of strength. As I've encountered all the peaks and the valleys in my life that have tested my faith and my dependence on Christ, I remember what I have seen from my parents, and I was strong in the Lord. They're amazing people that have always been this incredible Christian example for me and for my brother. They aren't perfect, but they continually showed me what it is to be strong in the Lord. They always put God first in their lives and in ours. The Bible tells us to be strong in the Lord. That's a real churchy phrase, strong in the Lord. But what does it mean to be strong in the Lord? What does that look like in 2016? It's really easy to be strong and to praise God and everything's going well. But He really wants us to be strong in all of our circumstances, even the ones that aren't easy or pleasant. And that's when we have to be in the Lord. The strong part, I think we all know what that means, but that in the Lord part is what we struggle with. Because alone, I'm weak and I'm selfish. And I need Christ to be there with me. The only way to really be strong and to flourish in our lives is to do it with Him. And I want to share tonight 3 seemingly simple truths that have given me direction in my life about how to be strong in the Lord. The first is to strive to be content and not happy. Happiness is fleeting. It's an emotional feeling that comes and goes with the wind. But contentment is lasting. It isn't dependent on our professional successes, our personal relationships. Success in those things can bring us feelings of happiness, but they don't provide us with lasting joy. That's only found in Christ. In Philippians 4:11-13, it says, "I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. That's an easy concept, right? God's with me, so I'm going to be content no matter what the circumstance. Well, that was all well and good for me until March 28, 2004. My first daughter, my first child, my daughter Haley, was born that day. While that was supposed to be this joyous occasion, the problem was that she had this mysterious birth defect that wasn't diagnosed previously until she was actually born. We waited an eternity, or maybe half an hour, but for a new mother it seemed like years, before anyone in the hospital could tell us what was actually wrong with her. My model pregnancy, perfect 40 weeks to the day, ended in a less than favorable twist. Here I was, this brand new mother, with a child that was less than 6 hours old, with this extremely rare birth defect, and I was driving to Birmingham, Alabama in an RV. Haley had already flown up to Birmingham by herself at 6 hours old. Until her birth, I didn't even know what bladder exstrophy was, never heard that phrase, and at that moment I still didn't really even know what it meant. I just knew that my brand new, beautiful baby girl had this problem with her bladder, and we needed to find a doctor who could help her fast. As it turned out, that doctor was not even in Birmingham. We ended up in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins, and 48 hours after she was born, Haley had racked up quite a few frequent flyer miles. She had her first surgery when she was 3 days old. I'm not saying those first 4 days of motherhood were easy, because they were not. I do not suggest that plan for anyone. But I knew how blessed I was to have this beautiful baby girl. And her beautiful, uniquely flawed bladder. And then we found this godly physician who was the world's renowned specialist with this rare birth defect, and he was a man of God. And he began to walk this journey with us. I wasn't happy that my daughter had this issue that she's going to be challenged with the rest of her life. I wasn't happy to see her in traction for the first 5 weeks of her life and not be able to hold her. But Christ gave me opportunity in that time in the hospital with her to find contentment and to really discover what it was to be content and not to look for happiness. See, Haley wasn't in a private room. There were actually 4 beds in this room at Hopkins. They call it a picnic. I think that's some sick joke some parent made up one time, and it just kind of caught on because it was not a picnic. But across from Haley was this sweet baby boy named Kevin. And Kevin's parents were from a suburb of Baltimore, and since his birth, they had both exhausted all their leave from work. They took turns and were at the hospital as much as they could be, but most of the time during the day, they had to be at work. At night, one of them would come and spend a few hours with Kevin, but the other would stay home with the other 4 children as he was their 5th child. Kevin was born with a heart defect, a kidney, and a liver defect. He needed multiple transplants, but his body was not strong enough for that. The doctors had told his parents that he was terminal. So as I'm sitting there getting to know these people, I'm realizing, wow, what a blessing bladder exstrophy is. Yes, her bladder doesn't work, but oh my goodness, this is a challenge we're going to live with, but not a terminal situation. As I got to know Kevin's parents that first week we were in our picnic, I realized just how blessed I was. I imagine Kevin's mother would have traded for bladder exstrophy with me in a heartbeat. Haley was in traction for those 5 weeks that we were there, and so I couldn't hold her, which was really hard as a brand new mom. But here was Kevin, and his mom couldn't be there. And so I asked his mom if it would be all right if when he cried during the day, if she would allow me to pick him up. So I would find myself sitting there between the 2 beds, between Kevin's bed and Haley's bed, holding him and singing to the 2 of them, and realizing that was contentment. I could do something for this mom, and she could do something for me in that moment. And I realized that looking for happiness was not going to, not ever going to fulfill me. Those are the moments that God was able to show me through those circumstances. Kevin was only with us for a little bit, a few more weeks while we were there. His parents were able to take him home and for a short while and have their entire family reunited. And they were able to find that contentment as well in their circumstance. So the second thing that I want to share with you tonight is the Lord made today for me, and He made today for you. This day was created uniquely for each of us, however God created it. I'm not a worrier, which I'm sure surprises you because I am a female, but somehow my brother inherited that from my mother, and I inherited the part where you don't from my dad, because I just don't worry. Now, I'm a planner. I like to know exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it. I like to be the organizer. For instance, my children are 2 years and 9 months apart. That seems perfect to me. They're actually 3 school grades apart, which puts them far enough apart that they'll never have to share friends or compete, but they're close enough that they'll like each other and can hang out, and hopefully when they're adults they'll be friends. Has nothing to do with the fact that my brother and I are also 2 years and 9 months apart. Another thing, my son's birthday, my son Kale's birthday is in the fall. As a high school teacher, I've always run away from the 9th grade because 9th grade boys are crazy. They're immature, the girls are about 7 years ahead of them at that point, and it's just miserable. So by Kale having a fall birthday, that was planned, hopefully he'll have a little bit of leg up on the rest of those 9th grade boys. So he might not be as bad as they are. It's been said by some people from time to time that I like to be in control. And in case you have not experienced it yourself, God has an amazing sense of humor. He loves to use it when we need an attitude adjustment, the same way I do with my own children. In August of 2009, and we fast forwarded a couple years, I find myself in a place that I could never have imagined. My daughter Haley was starting kindergarten. It was something that she had been looking forward to for years. She was going to grad school. That's my mom. My mom was the principal at West Navarre Primary. And Haley was thrilled to death because she was going to get to be a West Navarre star. She knew she was going to be in Tracy Jernigan's class, and she was going to be a Jernigan's jewel, and she just could not wait to start school. She was beside herself with excitement. And I really wanted to feel that same way. But I wasn't as excited because my master plan for our life, my plan had been derailed. 2 weeks before she started kindergarten, I filed for divorce. It's not something that I ever thought would happen to me. No one in my family was divorced, and I was going back to work, teaching math at Gulf High School, which I was very thankful to find a job because there weren't any that year. I was taking my 2.5-year-old son to daycare. That was not the plan. I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I was going to read to him every day, every book ever written for small children. He was going to know his times tables by the time he started kindergarten. I had all these plans, and that is just not what God had in store. I felt like a failure, like I had done something to screw this up. And what I came to realize is it wasn't me that screwed it up. Well, it was me that screwed it up, but it was that I was trying to work with my plan and not with Christ's plan. And one day this verse just hit me like a ton of bricks. Psalms 118:24 says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." I used to think that verse was this, very joyful and wonderful verse for when your blessings were abundant. It's a real churchy phrase too. Where everything's wonderful. But now, and in this time, I started looking at that verse differently, in a way that is now much more meaningful to me. It's the words that I go to when I need to remember that in the midst of everything that's going on in this day or this season of my life, that God made each and every day, every single day for me, that day. And He's equipped me to get through this day. He doesn't want me just to get through. He wants me to be strong, and He wants me to delight in Him. So despite the difficulties of all the start of this school year, that situation, I stopped my pity party and decided that if God made this day for me, then he would walk through it with me. And he would make me strong enough to get through this day. And then tomorrow, he would do it all again. It wasn't an easy season of life. But my kids and I made it through. Not only did we make it through, we flourished through it. They didn't get A's or B's in kindergarten, but if they did, Haley would have made straight A's. And today, we have this incredible life. She does make straight A's now. She's not here, so I can brag on her a little bit. It isn't always easy to co-parent with a former spouse, but we have found a way to be the best parents we can possibly be, living in two houses. We do that because we've got these incredible grandparents that also support us and know that this day is the day we need to work with them. And then tomorrow, we'll do better tomorrow. We'll try again tomorrow, and God will continue to build us up and help us get through this day. The last thing the last thing about strength that may seem a little strange is to wait. How does waiting give you strength? Well, that was a really challenging thing for me, because you haven't noticed, I like to control, I like to plan, I like to, I'm a woman of action, but that's not always the way that God wants us to make it through whatever's going on in our life. So in December of 2011, I found a lump in my right breast. I'm a woman of action. So I made an appointment, and I went to the doctor and had it checked Friday afternoon right after work. Monday morning, I planned to swing by and have those 2 tests run, quick tests, and then hustle to school so that I could be there for my first class. I was not intending to, miss my students for any reason. This was just some little bump in the road, unintended. I didn't need anybody to go with me. My mother offered. She's still pretty mad that I didn't let her go. But I didn't need anyone to go with me. I can handle this. So I ran by Gulf-Breeze Hospital and had my first mammogram and ultrasound. I was only 36, so what could possibly go wrong? But that wasn't exactly how that day turned out. And again, this is the day the Lord has made. And I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to rejoice through it. So after those 2 tests that morning, I met with a radiologist, and in essence, he looked at me and said, "You've got cancer." Panic started to set in. Not because I was concerned with myself or being sick or any of that stuff, but because I can't die. I've got children. They've got practice. They've got, dance class. I cannot do that. I do not have time for cancer. I called my mother and told her that I was meeting with a surgeon that afternoon, that I had the cancer and she needed to come on right now. So, of course, she did. So she's speeding down the highway from Navarre from school, and so I called Karen and said, I have cancer and I'm going to need for you to come hang out with me. So we went and sat in Starbucks and stared at each other for a couple of hours until the shock started to wear off. We didn't talk a lot because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I had cancer. So I was this 36-year-old single mom, and I just didn't have time for that. So that afternoon I met with the first of the many, many doctors that I would meet over the next year, several months. And the first thing I said to him, really before he got a chance to say anything, shocking, I let him do a little exam. And then we sat down to talk, and I said, "I know you look at me and you see this beautiful young woman, but what I need for you to understand and what I need for you to see is that I'm a single mom of 2 kids, and I am going to live. And I don't know what this entails, but we need to go ahead and schedule that Delta set to me, so when should we do that?" And he looked at me and said, "Well, hold on now, let's find out what's going on." I was like, no, you don't understand. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to just I don't need this, just let's take care of it. I want to be here for my children. And he looked at me and said, "You have to wait." And that is not something that I appreciate. But I learned pretty quickly that lots of doctors told me I just need to hold on a minute and just wait just a second. So Of course, I didn't really know what I was talking about because I'm not a physician. I am not a surgeon or an oncologist or a radiologist or have any medical background whatsoever other than my training with bladder exstrophy, which is not breast cancer. That day I was talking that day with my doctors, and I realized that my timing was not the same as God's timing or as my doctor's timing, that the treatment that I wanted to be swift was not the right thing to do, that I had to stop and to wait. And it took a lot for me to do that. So over that course of the next year, I had chemotherapy from January to May. I had a double mastectomy in June, a reconstruction in October, and a complete hysterectomy in December. My body was torn down. My energy was obliterated. My stamina was non-existent. And to make matters worse, my sweet Haley, who's now a second grader, developed bladder stones that spring, and we made 3 trips to Baltimore to have them removed in the midst of all that. So, to someone looking from the outside, it seemed like we just couldn't catch a break. We were those people that when you walked by, people whispered about them like, oh, that's the one. That's what I felt like. Or I felt like other people looked at us that way. But what was really going on with us was that God was teaching me that I needed to wait, I needed to stop. And when I would stop and listen, He would give me these opportunities to show this inner strength that He had given me. And so during that time, I was teaching high school math to mostly 10th and 11th graders, just 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Those kids are so vulnerable, and I had this amazing opportunity to be able to talk to them and to show them. They would look at me and say, how are you here every day? How are you teaching our class? Why are you not laying on the floor, in a puddle at home, crying? I said, well, how's that gonna help? God's given me this amazing gift. And so these kids would ask me, and I had this opportunity to share Christ with them in my public school math classroom. Don't tell. But actually, it was okay. But it was just this incredible gift because it was so honest, and it was even when I wouldn't use the words, they could see that something was different with me. And so the 165 kids that I taught that year were able to see Christ in me every single day and to see the strength that He built in me every day. And so I had to wait through a lot of junk for that opportunity to come. That was 12 years into my teaching career that I was finally able to really show them and talk to them about Christ. The verse that everyone who knows me knows is, my placard. Everywhere it hangs in my house. I have a bracelet. It's in my classroom in a place where you can't see it, or my office. It's Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And I share that with my students regularly. That when they would say, "How do you do this?" I was able to, those words just come out all the time, to the point where they knew that was who I was. I had faith that I could be strong enough to survive Haley's bladder exstrophy. I could survive divorce, and single parenthood, and the cancer. God has to have something amazing in my future, in our future, in this opportunity we have. And I'm starting to see that amazing future that He's given me, that He's set me up for, and that He's prepared me with all of these things through my life and given me all this opportunity to build character and strength. In December, I completed my master's degree in education leadership at the University of West Florida. It's a year later than I planned. I started chemo classes. But nonetheless, that 2-year-long journey is something I am so proud to have taken. I want to be a school administrator in Santa Lucia County, just like my mom. And I'm well on my way to reaching that dream. The master's program was entirely online, which was great for a single full-time working mom to fit in somewhere between 9:30 and 11:30 at night after work and homework and basketball, baseball, dance, dinner, baths, bedtime prayers, shut your door and go to sleep moments. But every one of those classes asked us, it's all online, so it's not real personal, so they always ask you at the beginning to tell us about yourself, write us a little introduction, and you give them your story. So every time I did one of those, I'd tell them about my family. I'm a single mom, got these 2 beautiful kids who live in Gulf Breeze. I always put a picture on there because everyone needs to see my children. And I would tell them, I'm a math teacher at Gulf Breeze High School, or now some semesters, and then I was moved into the dean's job, or dean of students. And I'd always put at the end that I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I don't know, as I was thinking about that, as I was thinking about this night, why do I always identify that? Why do I always write that I'm a breast cancer survivor? I'm so much more than that, and so are you. I'm a life survivor, and better still, I'm a life thriver, because Christ's given me that strength to get up every day and to try again to show the world who He is to me. It's a choice that I make every morning. How do I want to live my life? Do I want to be the kind of person that other people look at and say, wow, she's an amazing woman, or she always seems to have it together? Well, of course I do. Who doesn't? The problem is, I'm not an amazing woman, and I don't always have it together. It takes that strength that only comes from Christ to be content in less than favorable situations. It takes the strength that only comes from Christ to live every today that He gives to us. And it takes the strength that comes from Christ to wait for His plan to come to fruition. I'm never going to be able to handle all the things that life throws at me by myself, but in the Lord, I can be strong enough to conquer mountains, and so can you. Thank you.
How great is our God? How great is our God? All of the testimonies that you've heard tonight, everything that's been spoken and said, that's the only way that we can end this, is to sing How Great Is Our God. And I forgot some of the things that you've been through. I've known you for a long time, and I'm sitting here going, oh my word, oh my word. Sitting here too, also totally convicted by my puny little things that are going on. And I bet that you can identify with some of the things that she spoke tonight. I bet some of you have dealt with cancer. I know some of you have dealt with cancer. I know you. I know some of you have lost children. I know that some of you have had dealings with divorce. We can identify with all of these things, but we know a great God who has made this day for us. That's amazing. Stand with me and let's sing How Great Is Our God together before we go. The splendor